All right, good morning, gentle people of engineering graphics. Let's get the show on the road here. This is really going to be the last Fusion video in this module, and we need to go through the process of generating an assembly drawing in Fusion. So I hope it's not too long. Again, if it's too long, then I'll divide this up into two videos. But let's get going. Okay, so first of all, I have up here the assignment. This is taken from Canvas. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a assembly drawing that consists of a single view, right? A full section front view. And there's a trick for doing that in Fusion, so I'll show you how to do that. We want to make sure that we observe proper part visibility and sectioning. We're going to also add in a bill of material and part label balloons, and we'll go through all the requirements for that. And we're going to set it up on a B-size sheet. And I think that's all the main points. Anything else, I'll discuss, or we'll talk about. All right, so let's go to our drawing. All right, so here is my my part, my assembly, I should say. A couple things before we jump in. Okay, now I had to edit my model, right, because I had some parts that I created through mirror. Through the mirror command. So for example, the bushing, right? The bushing, this is you can see it highlighted there. This is the left bushing. The right bushing, I actually created by mirroring the left bushing. The problem with mirroring is that in my bill of material, it created two instances of the bushing. And we can't have that in the bill of material. We'll talk about that more in the bill of material, but you can't have that. If there's one part, the bushing, that's used twice, the bill of material should only show it once, but it should label it as two parts. I know, I'll explain, but I'm just telling you ahead of time, if you have a mirrored part, you need to delete that mirrored part, and you need to go back to the original part and create a copy of it. All right, so what I did was I went to the bushing here, and I went to, so that was right click. I right clicked over bushing. I went to move copy, and then I clicked on create copy. Okay, and then I put this, rotated it and got it into position, and then I assembled it using a joint. Right, so you get it into you get it into the proper orientation, which in this case was just rotating it 180 degrees, and then use a joint to get it into right position. And so it was, it's not a big deal, but you got to do that ahead of time, or else there's no way you can fix that once you're in the bill of material. Once you're in the assembly drawing, the only way to fix it is to go back to your model, to do what I just explained, save your model, and then if you go to your assembly drawing, it will tell you that the assembly drawing needs to be updated, and then when you update it, it will fix everything, okay? So I had to also do that with the axle support. All right. What else? Oh, yes. You do need to make sure, so I right-clicked over one of the components here, the axle support and properties. This is a important area that you need to be concerned with. Okay, so right here, part number, part name, and description. Those are areas that actually we're going to come back and edit. I'll show you how to do that, because I want to show you the updating of the drawing and all that good stuff. Also note the physical material is shown here, but notice we can't edit it, right? So I have this correctly set to malleable iron, but if I need to change that so that it reflects properly in the bill of material, I need to go the right click and go to physical material and update it that way. Okay, so hopefully you did that ahead of time in your assembly model. If you didn't, you're going to have to do it now. Okay, so And you can do it here, or you can do it when you get to the drawing and then update it and all that good stuff. All right, so we'll go through all that. All right, so let's get the drawing started. So we go here to from design. Full assembly is correct. The standard is ASME, and we want it on a B-size sheet. Yep, all that's good. So we're going to say okay. And we come to the first hiccup in the road. I'm not sure whether that's correct, but we come to the first hiccup here, which is, well, aside from the scale is way too small. So let's get the scale up. So it's a quarter scale right now. That's clearly too small. Let's try half scale. Yeah, that's too small as well. All right. We got lots of room here, and we're only drawing a single view. So let's go to 1:1. Bingo. All right. So that's perfect. All right. The bill of material is going to go in this area right here. So our drawing is going to be positioned right here. It's a little tight for the balloons and stuff, but we can kind of adjust that and play with it, and it'll work. Okay, it'll work. So now the bigger issue that I was talking about is how are we going to create a single view drawing that is a section view when Fusion requires that in order to create a section view, I have a view that shows where the cutting plane line is, and then my section view. So Fusion requires that we have two views for a section view, but we only want one. How do we do this? It's it's a trick. All right. What we do is we create one view and position it outside of the drawing border. Now, if I want this view to be my section view, then obviously I can't use this as my base view. My base view needs to be the view from which I'm going to place my cutting plane line. So this is not my preferred view. This is my preferred view. I'm going to go to a top view, right? And here's the trick. I'm going to place my top view out here. All right. There we go. Now to create my section view, we're going to go like this. Now let's talk about the section view first before we get in there. Okay. So really we want the section view to cut through half of the object right there. Okay, but the problem with the cutting plane line that goes right through the middle of the object, as it should, it's going to get the wheel, it's going to get the axle supports, it's going to get the bushing and the axle and all that good stuff that we want. The problem is we're going to miss the bolt, nut, and washer on the left and on the right. So how are we going to get that in there? Well, you know from your reading and your going through the section view PowerPoint and listening to the lecture, we're going to create an offset section. Okay. Now the problem with creating an offset section in Fusion, there's a couple of things. First of all, I kind of have to be careful with where I put my cutting plane line. The second thing is Fusion does the offset section wrong. So, and I'll show you why. We're going to have to deal with it. It's going to be wrong according to the standard, but there's nothing we can do about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and, enough talking, let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to go to section view, and we're going to pick this as my base view, and I'm going to acquire the center point right there, and I'm going to track out, and then I'm going to click, and I'm going to come straight through. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to position this bend in the line, this 90-degree turn, as close to the washer as I can, but not on the washer. I don't want to do that. I want to go right about there. And then I want to go up. Oh, gee whiz, how far do I want to go up? All right, so watch. I'm going to go over and acquire the midpoint. I haven't clicked yet. And now I click. We come across, and again, you kind of have to eyeball it here. That looks about right, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to move over and acquire that point, and then click, and then come across here and click. Okay, that definitely is challenging. You may have to do it more than once. Okay, you may have to do it more than once to get it right. All right. All right, so there we go. Now remember that we can adjust the position of this later. So I'm going to place it right about there. That looks good. And I have to set what is going to be sectioned. So remember, the rules for section view say that we are not to section cylindrical features. So the axle is not sectioned. So we come over here and this check mark, take that away. Also, bolts, nuts, and washers are not sectioned. So we need to go down here and hex head bolt, lock washer, hex nut, hex bolt. Come on, there we go. Lock washer, hex nut, and it looks like I got everything there. Okay, so now we say okay. All right, now this is what is not correct. This line right here. That line is generated from, let me zoom back out here. That line is generated from that turn in our offset section, and that turn right there in our offset section. That is not correct, but there's nothing we can do to get rid of it. Okay, so we just have to live with that. All right. Now you can also see that if I make this turn right here, if I make it a little bit too far to the left or to the right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start messing up my cutting plane with regards to the hex bolt and nut and washer, and or my axle and axle support and bushing. So that's why you want it basically to be right in this area, and I did that. All right, now let's adjust our section lines. So remember, there's two ways that we can adjust our section lines. Okay, and this is not just Fusion. This is according to the section view standard. You're allowed to adjust the section lines by direction and by scale, okay, or size. Small parts need a smaller spacing on our section lines, okay, and adjacent parts should not have the section lines that go in the same direction. Okay, so let's start as a basis. Let's start with the top plate. That looks good, both in scale and direction. Now, this axle support on the left looks also good in terms of scale and direction, right? It's a relatively big part, and the direction is 90 degrees to the top plate, so that clearly shows that it's a mating part, a separate part. This is not good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click inside the section view lining, and see right there, scale 1, that's fine, and angle, we're going to go to 0. No, we're not. We're going to go to 90. See how that went? And then we go like that. All right, so let's go to the bushing. This bushing is good. Let's double click on this and see. Yeah, it's minus 15 degrees. I think we can get it to 0. Yep, that's good. But the scale is not good. So let's try 0.5. That's too tight. Let's try 0.75. Yeah, I think that's better. So 0.75 and 0. So let's do the same thing on the left side. So we'll go to 0 and 0.75, and we close. All right. And so that, again, now clearly we can see that everything is different. The wheel is good. Nothing else needs section views or cutting section lines. All right. So good. Let's get rid of this. We don't need that. And we'll put in center lines later. All right. But actually, I'll leave that up to you probably to do that. Now let's get the bill of material. Okay. And this is frankly the moment when you find out how much work you have to do back into your model. Okay. So be ready for this, because this is just, unless you have done this a number of times, you're going to find things that you didn't do in your model that you got to go back and do. All right. The good news is, one, you can fix it in your model. Generally speaking, sometimes it requires some work, but you know, not all the time. And two, you know, it's all gonna, you know, work out with the in the end, as long as you make your fixes. Okay. Worst case scenario is sometimes you have to go back into the model and actually delete a part and then recopy it or remake it. If you did everything correctly, then that shouldn't be the case. All right, so let's see. So we go to table, and the table is going to auto orient, right? So right now it thinks that I want to put the bill of material up here on the corner, and that's where the arrow is. But in reality, we want to put, or in this case, we want to attach it to the top of the title block, and notice it orients itself. Now, I'm going to place it right there, and see how it auto-populates. Not only that, but it gives me the balloons. Now, these balloons are not always appropriate. All right, so we might have to change some of these. So in fact, the 7, see the angle of the arrow? That's not appropriate. That's too close to being horizontal, so we don't want that. Okay, so we may blow these away and put some new ones in there, but let's turn our attention here. Okay, so a couple things. So first of all, I see that my materials are all correct, right? And this is taken from the model and the materials in each component. Okay, I see that my parts are correct. Now notice how many parts I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 parts. Top plate, axle support, bushing, axle, wheel, hex head bolt, lock washer, hex nut. You should not have more or less. You should have 8 parts. All right. Notice the quantity of the parts. I have 2 axle supports, 2 bushings, 4 hex head bolts, 4 lock washers, 4 hex nuts. All right. If you have 2 instances of an axle support, quantity 1 each, or bushing, or any of the hex head nuts, bolts, and lock washers, then you have to go back to your model and fix that. We want 2 axle supports, 2 quantity here, and part number axle supports. All right, yeah, I know that's part number, but this is Fusion kind of goofed on this. We could fix this actually, but this should be part name. I wonder if we can fix this. Because it really shouldn't be part number. It should be under description. I'm going to double click on this and try to, let's double click on the border right there. And right there, yeah, look at that. Okay, good. So I'm going to take off part number, click, and I'm going to put in part name, click. Awesome. All right. You can see we got some other things in there we don't need. The order is fine. We can change the order with these arrows. Table direction up is correct. Now, if you're wondering, oh, wait a second, Chuck, that kind of pushed it off there. First of all, that's not against the standard. It's just ugly. So I do want you to fix that. And we fix it by clicking on this once and then going over here to I think we're going to have to work it in pieces. So I'm going to click on this square right here, and I'm just going to, I'm going to click and hold and drag it in. Yep, drag it. Let's click and hold this one and drag it in right there. No. Is it going to let me do this? Here we go. We might have to do it in stages. Get it all in there and get it and eyeball it. There we go. All right. And now once you get that in there, we can move this a little bit. Item number doesn't need to be so far. Quantity, that doesn't need to be such a wide column. So we'll go like this. All right. And now the part name, we can kind of squeeze that. Okay, so now I want to make room for this material, and I know the description is going to um, be a little short. Again, it's not a big deal if this is 2 lines, but oh, look, that pulled it out a little bit. I guess I did too much over here. So let's go. Oh, there we go. All right, I might be spending too much time on this, and I think I am, so I'm going to try to do this one thing. There we go. So I got it to 1 line. All right. So so you may need to play around with that and adjust that, and I'll leave it up to your capable hands to do that. All right. So let's now turn our attention to the balloons here. So we got 8 parts. We need 8 balloons. We want them to be aligned horizontally or vertically, horizontally and or vertically, right? But we don't need them all on one side like this. So what I usually do is, you could start with this and see what needs to change. The bushing, I don't really like the bushing one right there. I think that that's not very clear. So I'm going to take that away and I'm going to go to this. Now, what's awesome about this is once you pick a part, it will automatically notice what that part is. Okay, so I clicked on the bushing. It recognized that was a bushing. It will put the correct number in according to what's in the bill of material. And now to get it lined up properly, I'm going to position over this endpoint, what's really the center, and I'm going to track down and then click. And there we go. Now I can kind of adjust this a little bit. I'm going to go straight up. Whoops, click straight up. Okay. And I'm going to adjust this straight up. Okay. The wheel, again, I don't like the wheel. I don't like it crossing this. This is just bad practice. So I'm going to take that one away, go back up here, and I'll just pick in the middle right there, and I'll track this down right there. That's good. I guess I'm going for a vertical alignment here. Let's try to do this. Let's wait to do that. The bolt is fine, but I think I can move everything up a little bit. That's good. I don't want to get them too vertical. Yeah, no, that's not a good angle. There we go. All right, now this one over here, I'm going to reposition this to the midpoint right there. The axle support is, you know what? I don't like the axle support here, so I'm going to click on this and I'm going to drag it over to this side. But clearly that's horizontal, so I'm going to grab this and just track it straight down. Okay. This is going to give me a little bit more room on this, so I'll just track this down just a little bit. And now for this, I'm going to get these out of here. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm just going to move this up a bit, and I'm going to move this up a bit like that, so it's not, and look at that. All right, so we got that into good positioning. And again, you don't have to follow this positioning. If you want to put some across the bottom or across the top or on the right, that's fine. But you do need to have them arranged either horizontally and or vertically. All right, so you can have some horizontal or some vertical here and then some horizontal, but they need to be in a line, not just random helter-skelter, thrown on here. All right. All right, so let's do the center line next. So we go up here to center line, and let's put in a center line between here and here, and let's click on this, and let's just pull this. Whoops, come on. Let's pull this out right about there, and we'll pull this out right about there. Let's do the same thing for these features. So we'll pick this line and this line, and nope, that was not what I wanted to do. I want to click on it and get the arrow and do it that way. All right, and then let's do this one. The drawing in Fusion is the, you know, I hesitate to say this, but it's actually the worst part of Fusion. And you know, it doesn't allow you to do some of the definitely it doesn't allow you to do some of the section views. All right, it doesn't follow all the standards, which is problematic. It does not create. You can create auxiliary views. We didn't do this in this class, but we've done it in the past. You can create auxiliary views, but it's kind of a process. It's you know, you kind of have to mess around with things, and it's not so straightforward. So that for me is the biggest issue. Okay, so hopefully when you all go off to your engineering, your universities and your engineering programs, you continue to use Fusion, or you use it as a, you know, as a learning tool, a step in your learning of either SolidWorks or Inventor or PTC Creo Parametric. Both of my kids at U of I and Bradley, their classes use PTC Creo, and you know, it's a lot like Fusion, very much so. So same idea. But all right, so let's see. I got all the center lines in there. Now everything is good. Now let's address the description. So we can't leave this blank in here. All right. So where's the description come from? Well, first of all, the description is going to be either the, and this is in the notes and in the PowerPoint presentation. So you do need to check that out. Okay. But the description is going to be one of three things. Okay, one, it's going to be the detail drawing number for the for a part. So if the part if a part is designed by the company, let's pretend that we're a caster, you know, company. We make casters. Okay, caster wheel assemblies. Then we're going to make certain parts in our company. And in this case, the parts that we're going to make are going to be, we'll make the top plate, the axle support, the bushing, and the axle, and the wheel, because those are non-standard parts. You're not going to be able to go to a catalog or some, you know, kind of company and say, hey, I want, you know, this axle support, right? It's specific to the assembly that we're creating here. So for those parts, in this case, parts number 1 through 5, the description is going to be the detail drawing number that is going to be the detail drawing for that part. Now, we have not done that in this class. We have not created a detail drawing of the top plate. So your description here is going to be a fictitious detail drawing number. All right, and I'll show you what that is. I'll show you how to generate that, but it's just going to be made up. Okay. The second type of description in a bill of material is going to be a vendor name and a catalog number. So if it's, let's say it's a bearing from, you know, FNC Bearing Company, they're going to have a type of bearing and a catalog number for that specific type of bearing. That's what you put in the description. Why? Because the bill of material is like your parts list, and so it needs to point the person in the direction of getting that part. So that's why it needs to be a catalog number and vendor, so that they know, okay, I need to go to this company and I need to get this number of part. The third type is a standard part. Okay, so for example, the hex head bolt, lock washer, and hex nut. there's not a company that makes a specific hex head bolt here. There's a million companies, right? In fact, you could go to Home Depot and Ace Hardware and Menards and pick up this. So all we need here is the standard part description, right? And for the hex head bolt, it's going to be the thread specification. For the lock washer, it'll be the size, and the hex nut, it'll be thread specification as well. All right. So I'll show you how to do that right now. Okay, so let's take care of the description then. So in order to do the description, we have to go back to the model. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. And that's fine. We'll save it there. All right, and now let's go back to the caster model. Remember where our description was? It was right here. We go to right click on the top plate, go to properties, and then there's our description. So the top plate, and here's the name that I'm going to give it. You can come up with your own name. Just, make sure it's appropriate for the assembly. So the top plate, I'm going to call this let's say EGN 150 301. Whoops. Let's make the EGN capital. EGN 150 301. Okay. So, and that's just the number that I made up. It's part number 1. So that would be my detail drawing number for this part. All right. So now we got to go to the axle support, and the axle support is part number 3 according to the to the drawing sheet with the caster assembly. So this is going to be EGN-150-300-3. And we say OK. And let's go to bushing property. This is EGN-150-300- and the bushing is 5. Again, you don't have to follow my naming convention or part description numbering convention. You can make up your own, just as long as it's reasonable. The axle is part number 4, EGN-150-300. Whoops. 300-4, and the wheel EGN-150-300- the wheel is 2. All right, now we get to the hex head bolts. So let's do the bolt. Right click, go to properties, and we see that the bolt is a M10. Well, we don't see it here, but we know from the description the bolt is an M10. It's 40 long, so the and you're going to need to find the specific notation in the notes for the dimensioning. All right, so it is a M10 by 1.25 by 40 LG. Okay. So it's an M10 bolt. It has a pitch of 1.25, and we got that from the McMaster car information. All right, and then it's given that it's 40 millimeters long. So that's our description there. We go OK. All right, the lock washer. Well, the only specification for a lock washer is that it's an M10 lock washer, right? That is to say, it fits around an M10 bolt. And the hex head nut is likewise an M10, but it also has a thread, so the thread is a 1.25. It doesn't have a length or anything. If it was finished or semi-finished, or we had some specification there, it was a thick nut or something special, then we would add that. But in this case, it's not. It's pretty much standard. So that's that. Now this other stuff in here, because I don't know how it was. So this one right here is right. That's hex head bolt. So I will probably have to go back and adjust the properties there. I'm not going to bore you with that because I've shown you how to do all that. So and likewise, with some of this stuff. So we'll just leave it like that. You can finish the rest of that if it needs be. So now, how do we get it to update the drawing? Well, we save this. All right. So we go to save. Yes, and now watch what happens. when we go back to our caster assembly, notice we get a warning down here. Changes have been made to the reference design, and we get a little triangle symbol up here. So what I need to do is click on this triangle, and look at that. Isn't that nice? So yeah, everything is good here. What else do we need to do on this? We need notes. Okay, so you can put the notes on here. Notes refer to all dimensions in millimeters. We don't need a drawing standard note here. Actually, no, let me back up. We do need a drawing standard note. We need a all dimensions in millimeters note. We don't need a fillets and rounds note. There are no, actually there's no dimensions in this. So we do not need a dimension standard note. All right. So you need an all dimensions in millimeters note. Why millimeters? Because right here these numbers are in millimeters. That should be it. All right, and the last thing is I said we should put a section. We should put a isometric drawing up here. So let's get that. Let's see first of all whether we can do it with a base view. So I'm gonna save this, and let's do it with a projected view. So I'm gonna project from this, and yeah, see, it puts it in there as a section view. We don't really want that. That's not really appropriate. So how are we going to do that? Let's hit escape and let's do a projected view from here. Yeah, that's a weird orientation. Okay. So how are we going to get that in there? All right. So we're going to go to base view, and we're going to go over here to orientation, and we're going to choose a isometric view. Is that right? No, southwest isometric, southeast isometric. That actually looks pretty good. So let's remember that. Southeast isometric, let's try to go to half scale. Southeast isometric, that's not bad. Let's try northeast isometric. Actually, that... Let's go back here to southeast isometric. I think that's better. So I'm going to click right there and say OK. There we go. Now it looks kind of weird with that line missing. So I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to change this to shaded. Oh, look at that. Very nice. We'll close that. Let's see what else. We're almost done here, people. You know, I should say one thing about this. Let me double click inside this view. Here, you know, we didn't talk about thread edges, right? So right now, this is what's called a detailed representation of the threads, and typically we don't draw a detailed representation of the threads. Now I know Fusion did all this work for us, but what oftentimes happens is that's just, you know, depending on the size of the plot, that can be just messy. It just, you know, there's too many lines in there, and certainly if you're doing it with AutoCAD, if you're doing a drawing with AutoCAD, we wouldn't want to do this. I've done these drawings, and it's really a pain. Not only just finding the dimensions, but then drawing it. So we can go to thread edges and click on that, and nothing changes. Yeah, it's not, Well, I thought that it was going to show this in a different representation. I guess it's not going to do that for me. All right, so ignore everything that I said. All right, so we're good to go. All right, there's our drawing. We have our view up here that we're not going to see. Don't forget to fill in the title block and border. Okay. And save it and get it all looking good. All right, people. Good luck, and let me know how things go. Alrighty.